My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today I want to do a reaction video off of from a fitness influencer that did a very short video here. One of the reasons why I'm doing this is because, yes, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, but I do it from a holistic approach. I've been a personal trainer for about 35 years, so I do have a lot to say when people do these fitness influencer shows. This is a quick one. I think it's off of Instagram. Now, again, I'm not doing this show to make fun of him in any way. I actually agree with him in a lot of ways. But I just want to use some of the things that he says as a launching off part to be able to expand a little bit about kind of what I think about. And again, it's not to put him down because I think this is like 30 seconds, so he can't say everything that he thinks in 30 seconds. But I definitely want to add to it. And he talks about strength training for guys that over 40 years old. So I am, in 2 months, I'm going to be 59. So I hear what he has to say, and I think it's important, so I just want to add a little bit to that. So I'm going to play this video, and then we're going to talk about it. Let me see if I can get this just right so you can hear it. Let me turn up my volume here. And let's go for it.
These are my top 3 workout tips for men over 40. 1, exercise daily. When exercise is part of your daily routine, you're much more likely to stick with it and see results. Now, this doesn't mean you need to strength train every day. I only recommend 3 or 4 days a week of strength training for guys over 40. So on the other days, you're going to do some mobility work or go for a long walk, swim, or a jog. Number 2, do an upper body, lower body split. Now, younger guys can do well with more frequent strength training sessions, but it's better for us older guys to stick with a simple 2-day upper body, lower body split. 3, keep your workouts short. There's no need to spend more than 30 to 40 minutes on your workout, especially if you're training daily. Recovery is crucial for us older guys, so don't overdo it. Are you looking for a complete program? Check out Old Man Strength. These are my top 3 workouts in 30 to 40 minutes on.
Okay, so now it's just going to repeat. So let me get to a section here where I could show you a picture later on. All right, so the 3 basic things that he said here is to exercise daily, do an upper and lower body split, and also keep your workouts short. I agree with a lot of that, but let's go over it in a little bit more detail. One of the things that I have a problem with is that, again, I think he says this old man. I think we have to watch out when we start to like give up the ship that easily, to immediately kind of throw in the towel to say at 40 you're old. Yeah, I think that's a limiting belief, and I think it holds people back. And I can prove that to you, but I'll do that in a second. Because I think if you already have that mindset that 40 is old, then I think it's going to have effects on you that are not going to be advantageous. You're going to be afraid to do things. You're going to expect that things are going to go bad. And I don't think 40 is that old. Again, I'm going to be 59. And there's a lot of ways that I've been training since I've been a young kid. And I go to the gym all the time. And I see these 20-year-olds. And still right now, if I had to do a bodybuilding contest against them, and we're not talking about the average 20-year-old off the street. We're talking about the average 20-year-old that's working out at a gym, that has a gym membership. I can still compete with them, no problem at all. So I don't know why that we're getting into this thing that 40 is somehow an old man. I think that's a bad way to go. The other thing is, off the top, he does mention also doing your mobility exercises and cardio. I think that's extremely important as well. All that is very important. Now to the other part. You shouldn't really listen to him completely, or me. Joe Weider talked about this many, many years ago, about the instinctive training principle. You have to do what's best for you. Only you knows where you sit right here. Like, have you been training the last 20 years? Do you have certain injuries? Are there certain genetic problems that you might have? Only you know that. So you have to go into your training as almost as a child. Be brand new. Try to see what you can do and work from there. And don't let somebody else's limitations be your limitations. He also mentions that the shorter workout. Let's talk about that. I agree in a certain sense because it's not what you do during the training session that's going to make you improve as much as it is what you can recover from. And yes, as you get older, it becomes more difficult to recover from your workouts. It doesn't mean that you can't do just as well. It just means that you don't want to overtrain. Let's talk about overtraining for a second. Are you overtraining? Well, let's throw this out first. If you're hitting about, say, 35, 40 years old, 45, don't assume that what you're doing possibly is overtraining or be afraid to overtrain. Because the first things you have to look at is, are you undernourishing yourself? Are you eating the right foods? If I were to ask you, what did you eat yesterday? And you can't rattle off the meals that you ate and what you had in those meals, and let's say the ounces of chicken, fish, tuna, turkey, you can't say that, I would say that you're not really following a good diet. You're not following something that's regimented and specific. So again, before you go to, I'm overtraining, see if you're undernourishing. The other part that's important is, are you getting the correct amount of rest and sleep? And are you managing your stress? Again, these things are very important. As a very young person, let's say 20 years old, you can be stressed out for sure. However, it starts to beat down on you a lot more. So in your 40s and 50s, that stress is going to be that much more because you're putting more stress on the body over time, and it just makes sense that there could be problems that way. So we have to worry about that a lot. So again, worry about the correct diet, worry if you're going to get the correct amount of, let's say, calm or meditative times in your life to where you're not stressed out. Take care of that, the overtraining might take care of itself. So let's talk about this age thing. The way I look at it is, again, you don't want to give up the ship right away and say, well, I can't do this, so I'm automatically going to do this push-pull workout that he talks about, or this upper and lower body split. Having muscle is extremely important. It also keeps up your basal metabolic rate so you can eat more food. And so therefore, there's going to be inevitable degrading over time where your muscles will get smaller. So what does that mean? It means that I think you want to aim for the highest peak you can. And the only time you should come down from that peak is when nature starts to take it from you. I don't think you in your mind should say, I hit 45 years old, I got to start backing up. I wouldn't back up and give up on anything. Not unless your body tells you that it's time. But don't have that number in your head to say that I need to back off. I would never back off. You want to have that peak as high as you can because, again, you want to have that gap. So in other words, let's say your peak strength and size and mobility and your cardiovascular output is here, and you start to come down. Well, if the average person is here, you're doing great because you're still way above the norm. But what if your peak is only here and then you start to come down? Now we have problems. Think of it in terms of money. You want to have as much money in the bank as possible or as much investments out there. Why? Because as you get older and you can't work as much and maybe your ambition comes down a little bit, that you don't have to work as hard because the money is going to work for you. And so it's possible as an older person, if you have certain investments and things like this, you can make as much money or more money than a younger person who's working all the time. And that's part of it. So you want that peak to be as high as possible. It's better to have more money in the bank so when that money does come down, that you still have plenty left. So again, don't back off just because somebody says you hit a certain age. Now, in terms of going heavy and training hard, again, I'm a little bit against what he's saying here. This whole thing about maybe training 2 to 3 times a week with weight training, I don't think is enough. I mean, if you're training 0 times, 1 is good. If you're training 1, then 2 is good. But you should build up because, again, I do believe in the short workouts. Now, in order to have a short workout, you would have less to do in that amount of time. So in other words, I still would go with single body parts. In other words, back on one day, chest on another, maybe shoulders or arms on another, and legs on another. And how do you do this as a person who's a little bit older? Well, what happens when you get a little bit older or a lot older is that it becomes somewhat destructive on the joints because there's a lot of wear and tear. So how do I deal with that? Well, you have to learn how to be a real bodybuilder. When you're young, it's all about, you can lift as heavy as you want. You could go for these 1 rep maxes. It's just about seek and destroy when you come into the gym and just throw stuff around. I'm not saying you should do that, but if you did do that, you're going to see a lot of people getting results, believe it or not. But they're not looking, say, 20 years down the line of how much damage it's going to do to their joints. So how do you get around that? Well, one of the things you can do is you can superset. And you would do an isolation exercise first, followed by a compound exercise. You can also do peak contraction. In other words, you want to be able to flex the muscles during the set, and it creates more contraction because that's really what you want. The muscles will know if the muscles are being contracted. It doesn't necessarily know how heavy the weight is. If you can make the weight feel heavier, well, then it is heavier. You would also work on the negatives. In other words, slowing down your reps, because this makes the exercise harder to do. If you make the exercise more and more difficult to do, it means that you need less and less weight to perform that, and yet the body still feels like it's heavy. So in other words, I've seen plenty of guys that I still train, and they tell me, oh yeah, I can lift 315, no problem on the bench press. Well, what I'll do is I'll have them do a set of flies first. And then we'll go into the bench press, and I'll say it's a 3-second negative. In other words, 3 seconds on the way down, pause for a second, and then push. What I find out inevitably is that these guys can't even lift more than 135. So they're going down about a third, or 66%, they're going down in their weight. And they feel bad. They're like, well, I need to lift that heavier weight in order to have a certain amount of muscle. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you only got 3 reps with 135. Therefore, that's a very, very heavy weight for you at that time. And what that does is it puts a lot of stress on the muscles, but minimal stress and damage on the joints. So I think that's the way to go. So that's where I differ with this fitness influencer a little bit. I still think you need to be heavy on the weight training stuff. It's very important. The next part of it, what I would say is, again, your goal is to have as much muscle as possible, because again, you're probably going to lose that down the line. So I want to show you this really quick. Again, he's saying that 40 is old, and how, but I can't imagine if I would have really backed off from my training at 40 years old, what that would have done to my life and some of the fun things that I've done. So I'm going to give you an example. I have a picture here when I was 22 years old. I was in the United States Championships, and I placed in that. And so this is you would say a relatively high degree here that I achieved. So there is a picture right there. All right, so that's 22 years old. Now he's saying in your 40s, you're old, you should start kind of backing off. And I was like, well, again, Joe Weider instinctive principle. You do what your body can do, right? And I would always push. Listen, you're going to die anyway at some point, right? No matter if you want to or not, it's going to happen. So why give up the ship on something that you enjoy and that you like? I say keep pushing as hard as you can until you can't. And so an example of this is, I don't have a picture from when I was 41 years old, but when I was 41 years old, I won the state championships. Now, what does that mean? It means that I beat everybody. I mean, I beat the 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds. Then 4 years later, because I needed to qualify for the nationals again, I had to go into another state championship, and I was 45 years old here. So as you can see there, if you compare me from 22 to 45, I was significantly better at 45. So let's not buy into the garbage that tells people that 40 is old and you're ready to basically retire and call it quits. So at 45, I was significantly better. Now let's take it another quick picture here if I can find it. And here's a picture when I was 52 years old. Oops, I can't get, it's too much glare. Anyway, there's too much glare there, but be that as it may, I was within 10 distance of the picture that when I was 45. You couldn't really see it there. But I was about at the same condition. Actually, I was a little bit smaller, but I was more defined at 52. So what happened at 52 years old? Well, I had won 3 shows in a row. Did I beat the 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds? Yes, I did. 3 times in a row. You know who I lost to and I got destroyed in the next show? I ended up going into the Mr. Universe for 50 years old and over. I got beat by other 50-year-olds. So I get what this guy's saying. He's in good shape and he should be proud of himself. The people around him should probably look up to him because he's doing a really good job. But what I would say is there are other people, when you move up the ladder, you see more things, right? Like the higher altitude you have, the more vision you have. And so I have, not to be mean to him, but I have a higher vision. I have higher altitude than he has, and I've seen more. And I have much better chance of losing to 50-year-olds a lot of times in these contests than I do 20-year-olds, because you shouldn't be giving up the ship. You can still work hard. So let's see, anything else I want to add to this guy's show here? No, I would, again, let me just agree with this. You should be working out on a daily basis all the time. Somebody might say, are you too old to work out? And I would say you're too old not to work out. I think it's actually more important to work out on a daily basis when you get older than it is when you're younger. A lot of times people, when they're younger, they have these natural physiques, right? It's much easier to stay lean and it's much easier to stay muscular when you're younger. When you get older, you don't have the exact hormonal balance that makes it conducive to having muscle and to staying lean. It's a lot harder to do that when you're older. Therefore, I think in a lot of other ways, you need to tighten the screws. Again, when I was younger, I could eat pasta like 5, 6, 7 times a week and still have abs. I can't do that now. Now I have to really watch my macros in order to do that. Again, I don't want to keep the show too long, so let me leave it at that. Again, instinctive training principle, do what you feel that you need. And I would always say, push for more. You want your body to adapt to a new stress to get better. If you are doing things that are too easy, you're basically enabling yourself. You're not allowing your body to adapt to a new stress to get better. Trust me on this, your body is going to get worse. And as you get older, it's going to fall down the hill a lot faster. So fight it. Go raging into your life as hard as you can and continue to do the best you can. And don't let age get in the way. My name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.